What's up YouTube, Capital G here, checking out the brand new Adamatia archetype that just got revealed. These are going to be released in Secret Slayers, which will be our next deck building set, very similar to Mystic Fighters or Dark Saviors. It's interesting because this is a Synchro based archetype, and it definitely feels like it was made with the spirit of Master Rule 5 in mind. This deck also excavates a lot of cards, like basically every single card in this deck excavates. So if you like them old Sylvan days, you might enjoy this archetype. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into it. There's a lot of one card synchro summons in this deck. Your first card is Damacyseeker. This is a level 2 Earth attribute rock monster. The entire archetype is rock based, by the way, so get your block dragons and your Doki Dokis ready. This is a tuner monster. 1200 attack, 1000 defense. Both of the effects are hard once returns. First effect, if you control an Adamatia monster except another copy of Seeker, you can special summon this card from your hand. Second effect, during your main phase, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you do, you can special summon a 1 level 4 or lower non-tuner rock monster among them. Place the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. Okay, so you can kind of consider this the blueprint for the Adamatia tuner monsters, and personally I feel like this is a pretty damn good blueprint. Number one, you don't technically need the normal summon any of these tuner monsters because they all have first effects that let them hit the field as special summons, and obviously when you're talking about synchro archetypes, especially if you're looking to drop multiple synchro monsters in a turn or you're looking to synchro climb up the ladder, your normal summon is going to be very important. So you might not want to use it for this card. You might want to use it for something else. Being able to get this guy out of your hand without using the normal summon obviously is very important, but then you're also talking about potentially a 1-card synchro summon because with that second effect you can excavate the top 5 from your deck. If you happen to hit a rock monster that's a non-tuner, you just get that monster on field for free. If it's a level 4, then basically you just got your 6-star synchro monster. And honestly what I really didn't expect was, like, Konami doesn't lock you into anything relating to this archetype. In fact, you don't even have to synchro summon. You can go for a link play if you want. You can synchro into, like, monsters that are outside of this archetype. I really didn't expect that. I thought that you'd be locked into Adamatia monsters for the remainder of the turn. But to me, I think this card is, like, these tuners have 2 really good effects. Special summon effect, obviously that's going to be good. And then, you know, the excavate, potentially just get a non-tuner on board for free effect, that's obviously really strong as well. Next up is Demacia Researcher, and this is basically the same exact card as Damacyseeker. The only difference is like the gender of the actual monster and then, you know, like the stat line, but everything else is identical. Our last tuner monster for this archetype is going to be Adamatia Analyzer, and this card's a little different, mainly because it's a level 4 monster. This is an Earth attribute rock tuner, 1500 attack, 700 defense. Both of your effects, of course, are hard once per turn. Your first effect says if only your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, so basically Cyber Dragon. The second effect says during your main phase, excavate the top 5. If you do, special summon a level 4 or lower non-tuner rock monster, and then, you know, put the rest back in your deck. So this card is interesting, again, mainly because it's level. I think that most of the time, if you're going to use this card turn 0, unless you can find some weird way of forcing a monster to your opponent's side of the field, you're going to have to use your normal summon on this card. However, the fact that it's a level 4, that's really interesting because this archetype, as you might imagine, has level 4 non-tuner monsters, and obviously if you excavate one of those monsters, now instead of dropping a level 6 synchro, you're talking about being able to go for a level 8 synchro, and level 8 synchros are, you know, pretty historically good. You got cards like Psyframe Lord Omega, which can just be summoned turn 0 to snipe a card out of your opponent's hand, and obviously there are a lot of good level 8 synchro monsters in the game. So as soon as I saw this card, I was like, uh-oh, we might have, you know, 1-card level 8 synchro monsters, and that seems pretty good in my opinion, especially considering if you're able to use the other tuners, you're maybe using this card as your normal summon, then using the other level 2 tuners as special summons, and you're going to be able to drop a bunch of synchros pretty easily, in my opinion, especially considering, again, all of these tuners are just one card synchro summons. Like, that seems really good in my opinion. Now, when it comes to the 3 non-tuners in this archetype, I'm going to cover them all simultaneously because the cards are just incredibly similar. I'll probably put all 3 cards on the screen, and I won't even put the effects on the screen. These are all level 4 monsters. They all have 0 attack, 2200 defense. Their attribute pool is kind of all over the place. You have fire, water, and then also wind. Those correlate with the synchro monsters that we'll talk about a little later. And these are all cards that when they're special summoned by the tuners, or I guess any Adamacia card, they get special effects. And then they have second effects that allow them to essentially kind of like put one of their synchro monsters that correlate with their attribute back from the field or the graveyard into the extra deck, and you get to stack these guys on top of the deck. So this archetype, since it's so focused on excavating, it does have a way of kind of stacking these guys on top of the deck so that your tuners always hit their effects. I think mainly you'll use those when the synchro monsters are in the graveyard, but mainly the water one is like the standout one. The water one's kind of nuts in my opinion, and it seems incredibly strong. The water one has an effect where if it's special summoned by an Adamacia card effect, you get to draw a card. And obviously that's stupidly strong because if you're talking about being able to just normal summon like the level 4 tuner and then excavate this guy, special summon it, draw a card, so you're already +2 technically, but just getting that draw obviously is very strong, and then trade that into an Omega and snipe a card out of your opponent's hand, tell me that's not a pretty damn good turn 1. I mean, numerical advantage, you're taking a card out of your opponent's hand, you're getting a draw to kind of replace the field presence that you're losing. It seems really good in my opinion. Anyways, to the synchro monsters. Now, when it comes to the synchro monsters, there are 2 level 6s in this archetype, and they're very similar, so I'll cover them at the same time just to save a little bit of time. These cards have the same exact stat line, 2400 attack, 2200 defense. They're both completely generic as well. They both let you, during your main phase, excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, but the effects are a little bit different. The fire attribute guy lets you add 1 Adamacia card that was excavated from those cards, and then you put the rest of them at the bottom of your deck in any order. Also, during your opponent's turn, if there's a fire monster in your graveyard, you can target a rock monster in your graveyard, and then you get to special summon that card. The wind one is a little different. Instead of adding an Adamacia card, you get to special summon a rock monster in defense position if you did excavate one amongst those 5 cards. And then its effect that activates during your opponent's turn is the fact that you get to target a card in your opponent's graveyard and just banish that card. So if your opponent's playing something that's very graveyard reliant, you essentially get a DD Crow during their turn. I think that honestly, I think it's interesting because I feel like adding an Adamacia card is probably a little better than just being able to special summon a win one. But if you are dropping multiple synchro monsters, like if you summon a tuner and then you're going to drop another like synchro, that could be very strong. I feel like these 2 cards are fairly evenly matched. Being able to have a DD Crow effect for free is going to be very strong against certain matchups. We all know that. But when it comes to the fire one, it allows you to get the spells and traps of the archetype to your hand, and that obviously is going to be pretty good as well. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the big boy, the level 8 Synchro, which has 3000 attack, 2200 defense, and is actually completely generic. First effect, during your main phase, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you do, return cards your opponent controls to the hand up to the number of rock monsters among them. Place the rest of them at the bottom of your deck in any order. Second effect, if your opponent activates a spell/trap/spell or trap effect while a water monster is in your graveyard, quick effect, you can negate that activation, and if you do destroy that card. See why I said that the water non-tuner was clearly the best one? It wasn't just that awesome draw effect, but it's Synchro is also the best Synchro one. I mean, yes, it is a little higher level, but let's be real, having free spell and trap negation is always going to be good. Shout outs to the Mermill players out there. This might be another extra deck card that you guys can use. Not only does this card get free spell and trap negation every single turn, but also non-targeting removal is pretty damn awesome. Being able to kind of excavate a bunch of cards and maybe get some effects and also bounce some stuff from your opponent opponent's field to their hand. Non-targeting removal going to be good. And if your opponent does try to disrupt you with some spells and traps while you're resolving that effect, obviously you can negate that. So this is a pretty strong synchro monster in my opinion. Anyways, let's talk about the field spell, which really impressed me. It kind of ties this entire deck together. This is Adamacia Researcher, which I don't know what that word means. Anyways, it's a field spell with the first effect saying all rock monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. Second effect, once per turn during your main phase, you can choose up to 5 Adamatia cards from your deck, place them on top of your deck in any order. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. There is your Mount Sylvania. There is the card that guarantees you could always put the freaking water non-tuner on top of your deck and basically excavate it so that you always draw a card and then are able to summon it. To me, this is what kind of ties the deck together and it makes it consistent. I do believe that you need to hit this field spell like ASAP, but if you're telling me that I get to stack my deck and obviously make my deck run as fluently and as consistently as possible, then I'm definitely going to take that. I think the attack and defense is just a little icing on the cake. I just like being able to stack my deck because it seems so important in this archetype. We've got a trap card, and this is a normal trap that says tribute any number of Adamacia monsters, then target cards on the field equal to that number +1, destroy them. Ooh, I like this as well. So basically, if I just tribute 1 card, I get the pop 2, or if I tribute 2 cards, I get the pop 3. This seems really good as well. And this feels like a really strong disruptor because, again, if you're just getting the tuners on board, the tuners should summon the non-tuners for free. So let's not act like getting 2 of these monsters on field is going to be difficult. I think that it's really strong being able to pop potentially 3 cards on your opponent's side of the field, especially, again, when the tuners don't even eat up your normal summon. Like, this is an excellent defensive card. Anyways, the final card is Demacia Resonance. This is a counter trap that I guess in layman's terms is Gladiator Beast War Chariot. When a monster effect is activated while you control an Adamacia Synchro monster, negate that activation, and if you do destroy it, as I said, this is just basically Gladiator Beast War Chariot. It just requires a Synchro monster, but as we've established from talking about these cards for this long, it is stupidly easy to get the Synchros on field. A lot of times the tuners themselves should be able to just be 1 card Synchro monsters, so I don't think that this is going to be all that difficult to trigger, and it would have been nice if maybe it offered a full-on Infernity Barrier, but the the level 8 Synchro already has Spell and Trap negation, so I feel like that will be strong. Honestly, I think their 2 trap cards are really good. I mean, having a War Chariot and then also having kind of like a souped up kind of Icarus attack or Fire Lake, if you will, this archetype feels really strong, and I think that it definitely needs Master Rule 5, but I think there's a lot of potential here. Whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.